So today I just made a quick lunch with some of the ingredients you guys got in your bags. Sorry some of you didn't get all your stuff yet, but you'll get some tomorrow. Started with the zucchini. I washed it, washed my hands, cut it up. I made slices. I flipped the slices. I sliced the slices, and then I organized them and I sliced across the way and got little cubes. I made a big pile of zucchini cubes. And while I was cutting them, I started heating the oil. I put some oil in the bottom of the pan. I had a big enough pan to fit all that zucchini in pretty much one layer because I wanted it to get brown on the bottom. I heated the oil pretty hot. I added the zucchini and I didn't stir it. I just let it sit and sizzle, and I seasoned it lightly with salt and pepper. I let it sit longer while it was cooking. I got my garlic, I peeled it, and while I was also doing that, I was boiling some water to cook the pasta. So on one burner I had the zucchini cooking. On the other burner I had some water boiling, which I added a little bit of salt to. And when it boiled, I added the penne, and I stirred it. And you can see it hasn't come back to a boil yet. Meanwhile, in this pan, I haven't turned the zucchini yet. It's still been frying away. I added the garlic on top. You can barely see the garlic. It is steaming still. It's starting to fry. Soon I'm going to flip it. There'll be some good brown on the bottom. If you stir it too soon, sometimes the moisture starts releasing in a moist vegetable like zucchini, and then you don't get the brown you're looking for. So I definitely wanted that brown flavor, especially because it was a very large zucchini. I wanted to make sure a lot of the water came out. So after it got browned and I flipped it, I added some Parmesan cheese, and it was still on high, and let the Parmesan sort of cook a little bit. Then I turned it off. Took a tomato, washed it, took the core out of the tomato. Then I took the tomato and sliced it, then stacked the slices, sliced them the other direction. So I'm just showing you the core here. That's a part that's usually tough, so it's good to take it out. So I sliced it, sliced those slices in the other direction, and then I flipped them around. And meanwhile, I was keeping my eye on the pasta. I was going to take some of the pasta water out to use to thicken it, but then I decided not to because there wasn't much left. Drained the pasta. The pasta is draining. I drained it into the pan in case I wanted some of that pasta water. Often the pasta water is good and starchy and is useful. I didn't end up using it in this dish, but I had some reserved. Here's what the zucchini looks like. Now the pasta is all drained. It's in the bowl, and I'm adding the cooked zucchini with the Parmesan cheese and garlic. I also added some fennel seeds. I'm not sure I showed you that. I added them early on. I added the chopped tomato. So the chopped tomato is raw. I went out to the garden now, and I went and found I have some small basil. I picked some leaves off this small basil. I also knew I had some larger basil in another part of the garden, so I picked some of the small leaf basil and some of this large leaf Genovese Italian basil. I picked just some of the leaves. I'll show you on this next picture. I pick it right where the stem meets the next stem. So if I pick it there, the plant will keep growing nicely. I also picked a couple of these nasturtium flowers, which are edible flowers, have a nice peppery flavor, and they're quite lovely. I'm going to use them as a garnish at the end. So I brought everything back in. Oh, I think I stopped on the way, and I saw a few small leaves of kale, which I thought would add nice color, and some arugula. So I picked a few leaves of arugula, a few leaves of kale, and went back in the kitchen. And right away I chopped up the kale pretty small, and then I added the kale to the very warm bowl with the pasta. That way the kale would wilt and cook a little bit. It's very tender, but still I like the kale to be a little bit cooked. So I added that to the bowl of warm pasta with zucchini, garlic, fennel, and fresh tomatoes. I then picked the leaves off the basil stem. I don't want the stem, I just want the leaves. And I make a little pile of them, and then I get the pile a little organized, sort of going all the leaves together. I sort of rolled them up. I'm taking pictures while I'm doing this so I don't have two hands. And then I take my chef knife and I do what's called chiffonade. It's making thin slices of basil. And I use a sharp knife and I work quickly, and that helps the basil keeps it from bruising. Slice the basil in thin slices. I sliced the mini basil, which was just small leaves. I just minced that a little. Threw that all in, tossed that together with the warm noodles. I was planning on eating this at room temperature, not hot. So it's still sitting on the stove. and I'm about to go have some lunch.